I'm confident in our team and our charity that we will be able to produce some first-class cricketers one day. We're getting a lot of our young people going into the county pathway, so we've done our part, and like hopefully the counties will do their part to get them to that next level. But at the same time, what I say back to people is there's some counties that have been established for over 150 years and never produced a black British player. So I'm not saying I'm gonna wait for Ace to 150 years, but here's the context here. We're trying to do something arguably that hasn't been done successfully for a sustained period of time. Or you get told, it gets perpetuated as a message as those kids don't like cricket. How can you like something if you never had an opportunity to play? So we're giving them an opportunity to like it or don't like it, and some will like it, and others will still say cricket's boring. At times, people forget the human side of sport and coaching to shape. You're shaping champions on a playing perspective, but you're shaping champions in the life perspective, and that's what sometimes gets neglected, because you're building young people to become successful in all parts of life, and sport is a tool to do that. But I often look back at some of my own lived experiences. Some of my people I've aspired to were PE teachers, coaches that I've known. There's stuff I can go back in time to think of. I remember when so-and-so did that session, and it still stays with you because that's the impact it had. And sometimes I think we forget the impact that we have as teachers, facilitators, coaches, that we're having on a young person's journey, because kids are very impressionable. They're learning, they're taking it all in, and they will know if your session's bad or good, or if you're there or not there for them. So the holistic side of things, shaping champions on and off the pitch is crucial.
Welcome to the Shaping Champions podcast, a platform for discussion and exploration into what it takes to become elite, being the greatest version of yourself and succeeding at whatever it is you do in life. My name is Mashal St. Patrick Hewitt, one half of the Shaping Champions podcast. I'm delighted to welcome you back to another episode of the Shaping Champions podcast. And with me as ever, you know who it is. It's the one, the only Jimmy Davis. Jimmy, how you doing?
What an intro, man. You better get to realize the one, the only. Put it on all the letters you send me, all the emails, all the texts, the WhatsApps, everything. But yeah, man, ecstatic to be here as usual. We're joined by a really interesting and exciting guest this week, and I just can't wait to dive in and get into it, man. So why don't you tell us what we've got coming up, Mash?
Yeah, no doubt. And like yourself, excited to have this guest on. I've known him for quite some time now, and as ever with people that you kind of know in life, you forget how you ever met them, how you ever were introduced to them in the first place. You just start talking, and before you know it, you don't know the background to how you first met. But I'm delighted to introduce to the audience today the director of programs at ACE, and of course, some people will immediately be like, "ACE, talk to us about ACE," but we'll get into that. It is, of course, Mr. Chevy Green. I'm delighted to bring him onto the show. Chevy, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Mash. Jimmy, always a pleasure as well. Excited to see what Shaping Champions has in store for me. Feeling good.
And as I kind of said at the top of the show, director of programs at ACE, and we'll chop that up in a minute. We'll break that down for people listening. I mean, I'm fairly certain that lots of people listening will already know, but there'll be lots of people also listening being like, let's talk to me about this. But first things first, Chevy, it's the first thing we ask everybody who comes on the show. Obviously, it's a Shaping Champions podcast. And what I'd like you to just kind of tell us, without too much pressure, what makes a champion according to you, based on all your experience in the fields that you've worked in? What do you define as the characteristics, the key fundamentals of a champion?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. Not an easy one. You didn't let me come in and face a nice long hop to start off with, giving me a nice juicy in-swinging Yorker. Shaping champions. What is it? What makes a champion? For me, definitely you've got to have a strong character in terms of your mindset, your discipline, and kind of your focus to your craft, whatever that craft may be. But a big thing for me, alongside that focus, is confidence. You've got to have a lot of self-belief. You've got to have a lot of self-courage, because ultimately, even as a champion, you're still going to fail more more times than you succeed. You know, you're going to go through many hard parts of whatever you're doing, whether you're a student studying for an exam. You know, you've got to go through different revision papers and stuff like that. You know, in my field of cricket, you know, if you're a batter, you're likely to get out more times than you get some good scores. So you've got to go through some of that hard graft and have that strong mentality to believe in yourself, especially, you know, in the space of, you know, what I do now a lot with ACE is, you know, it's a talent ID program. So we're constantly, there's a pressure from a coaching side, from a management side, from a parent side. There's a lot of pressure on these young people to perform and succeed. And, you know, some coaches might not believe in you. They might not feel that you're good enough, or they might feel, actually, you're not an opener. You've got a bat low in your order. But as long as you have that self-belief matched with a strong mindset, and I think it's important to be patient. You know, everyone, the beauty of people, everyone moves at their own kind of pace, and your journey is your journey. So there's no point trying to copy others' journeys. You know, it's your specific journey to persevere with. And yeah, having that patience, the confidence, and a strong kind of mindset to keep going is a key thing for me to being a champion.
Love that answer, Chevy. Love that. I mean that. I'm not. Those aren't just empty words. And it's interesting because obviously, like I say, you work with ACE, and I do kind of want you to break it down for people. I won't do it for you. But when you do break it down, the first thing I want you to go into after that is, did you or do you, given the uniqueness of what ACE is, and given the kind of, and we can't get into it without looking at the kind of social context, the historical context, and so on and so forth. But given the unique nature of ACE, do you feel a kind of pressure to develop talent, given the heavy weight kind of hanging over the importance of the program?
Yeah, so I guess to get into ACE, you know, hopefully many people do know what it is, but for those that don't know, you know, ACE stands for African Caribbean Engagement. It's a talent ID cricket program that's trying to kind of encourage and re-inspire a lost generation. You know, I think it's safe to say, from predominantly the Black British community for cricketers. It's juniors. We start at 9. We go up to 14 as our juniors, and our seniors go from 15 to 22. So it's we started this program. You know, all credit to Ebony Rainford Brent. She's a champion in her own right. You know, what she succeeded being the first Black woman to play cricket for England. And, you know, what was highlighted was there was a 75% decline, you know, over the last, you know, now 27 years since we started ACE, from the Black British playing community in the professional game that sat at 1%. So that was, I guess, our immediate a direction to go. So try and address that. How can we get more young people from African Caribbean backgrounds? Because there's a strong heritage, there's a strong lineage there that has kind of, for various different reasons that we could go into, whether that is from a cricketing side, a social side, of where there has been a lost group of players, young boys and girls playing the game, to get into the performance side. But then we looked at the numbers, and the recreational side was even worse. So it wasn't even 1%. So it was a case of, you know, we didn't have a base to build from. So it was like, okay, how do we create a base, but still always with a talent ID focus? And I think that's one of the things that we like to try and at times separate ourselves from other charities that do a lot of similar work, because a lot of charities is about people just taking part and having a good time, and, you know, that mass participation element to it, whether that is from a predominantly, if I'm generalizing now, from a diverse communities background, from a women and girls perspective, a disability, there seems to be like sometimes a ceiling of where that performance level can go. You know, as a charity, it's kind of just helping people. And, you know, what we try to do is try and make sure our young players, our young scholars, as we call them, can get to the next level of what they want to do. And, you know, everyone has a goal of wanting to become a professional cricketer. They want to get to that next stage. They have those aspirations, and for us, it's how we support that, and also managing their expectations with that, managing their parents' expectations with that, because it's not always going to be a plain sailing road to the top, and it's just about how we support them. And I grew up wanting to play cricket for England like a West Indian, because at the time West Indies were a lot better than England. Now I probably just say I just want to play for England as times have changed. But I would say I'm a failed cricketer that didn't make it in the performance world, but I've been able to shape a career professionally in a sport that I love and being able to give back. So it's just opening up other opportunities and other thought processes, not just outside or from the playing side, that one day, hopefully, who knows if Ace is here in 10 years to come, 20 years to come, that it's maybe someone from our program is running the show one day. Who knows? It's just trying to open up people's eyes and mindsets, and all what we're doing here on a podcast. People do this professionally in the sports realm. It's showing that the young people that we're working with, they too can have an aspiration to be doing broadcasting and podcasting and be involved in the media, because a lot of our young people, they're heavily influenced and they're really good on social media. It's just trying to explain to them as well, you can be you can excel and be a champion in the social media front and follow a professional sports team all around the world, up and down the country, and still have that shared and lived experiences that you might have wanted as a player, but you can still get that gratification off the field too. So at the foremost, it's a talent ID program. So there is pressure. There can be pressure on us as a staff to produce players, but a lot of the time I say to people when they ask me, when's your next, what player is going to be your first contracted player? You've been running 2-3 years now. Is there a pro contract on the horizon? One day there definitely will. I'm thankful and I'm confident in our team and our charity that we'll be able to produce some first-class cricketers one day. We're getting a lot of our young people going into the county pathway, so we've done our part, and hopefully the counties will do their part to get them to that next level. But at the same time, what I say back to people is there's some counties that have been established for over 150 years and never produced a Black British player. So, I'm not saying I'm going to wait for Ace to 150 years, but, here's the context here, we're trying to do something arguably that hasn't been done successfully for a sustained period of time.
Just before Jimmy's about to come in, but just before he does, and I have a habit of stealing something that Jimmy's about to say, so I don't even know if what Jimmy's about to ask.
That mind reading stuff you got going on, yeah.
Great minds,
Yeah.
But just off the back of something you said there, how hard is it to build something from the ground up? Do you see what I mean? So yeah, okay, fine, you've been going through years, but you had to start from not nothing, but you didn't. Okay, yes, you may have had some talented children, youth, etc., that came through in that first cohort, but the structures around it, you had to go from scratch. It wasn't like you had an established program that you could say, right, this has been working and we're going to go with this. It was all kind of, well, maybe I'm wrong, but there would have been an element of trial and error about that. So how do you put the fundamentals in place to know that we can take these potential champions to the top?
That's such a poignant question, because tonight we actually got our academy training sessions that are back on today, first session back. And just before I came up here, we was just reviewing a bit of the season with some of them. But at the end, as I left, my parting message was I was just unbelievably proud of. There's 5 of the kids that have now graduated from the junior program into our senior program now, just because of their ages. They've come up into the older group, and they were there from the very beginning as well. I mean, the very beginning of their journey. And I mentioned this to them and to the group was, yes, we've got some funding from Sporting to be there 3 years, but there was nothing really in place. So kind of got given a lot of money on a whim to try and do a program that actually, who knew that we'd still be here in 3 years? Who knew what some of the successes that we have had and a lot of the learnings we're taking from this period? I didn't know. But I go back to the first question you asked me about what makes a champion, and I'll look within. I have a lot of self-belief and a lot of self-confidence in what I can do, and you draw on your experiences. And prior to Ace, I worked for Surrey for just over 7 years in various different roles. So from a community coach to a development officer to a manager, where I manage women and girls, disability and diverse communities. And then Ace came along. So all I did with, I guess, a blank sheet of paper was go back to, okay, the programs that I've run in the past, what successes did I have, or how did that look like? What can I take from there? You know, what things, what experience can I take? Well, that didn't really go well there, so I'm not gonna maybe go down that route. But I just tried to believe in myself of what the knowledge I had and how, in a similar areas of work that I worked in, I could relate it to what we was doing with Ace. And you know, all credit to her, and I don't say this lightly, you know, to Ebony. Like, I owe Ebony a lot, because there's one thing having self-belief in your own self, but for someone to believe in you, because I'm ultimately bringing her vision and her dream to life. So she's trusting in me, you know, and she's believed in me. So if I didn't know that she fully believed that I could do it and gave me that confidence to do it, I don't know if I would have been as so sure to, yeah, we're going to go down this route. I want to build schools programs, community programs, as well as supporting the academy. The academy needs to look this kind of way. We need to get a certain amount of coaches in. If we're doing performance, we need the right performance parameters in. Well, what we do at a county level, we need that in our level. You know, what we, you know, is just having that person to believe in you and have that confidence in you was massive for me. So I knew, even if we went down a path and it didn't work, I'm not saying I was gonna get in trouble for it or whatever, but it was a case of, okay, why didn't that work? Let's try something else. It was never like, no, let's not do that. It was okay, because you know, to build something through the first year was across COVID with 3 different lockdown spells. So you get going, you stop, you get going again, you stop, you get going, you stop, and you know. So some of the things that we've been able to do, it still blows my mind, from you know where we was just to be a Surrey program delivering in Lambeth and then extending to Croydon and Southwark, and then now to be delivering across 6 cities nationally, it just makes me proud. But I wouldn't have been able to do that. It's all one good thing, me having the confidence in myself. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have the people above me believing in me too.
And I think it's clear to see, Chevy, why Ebony's put her trust in you and giving you this role and responsibility to take it forward and to carry it forward. Because, you know, I'm just getting a sense that you are the man for the job. And I think what you're doing, it seems incredibly bold, like much needed, and I imagine very, very challenging as well. So my first question is around like any resistance that you've come up against so far, and where you start with breaking down the barriers in the world of cricket, which to some in this country is seen as an upper class sport. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, how was that kind of?
Yeah, no, there is resistance. The resistance that I knew is I knew once Ace kind of, and you got to know, with Ebony's platform being a broadcaster. So for those that don't know, Ebony, you know, a broadcaster, Sky Sports, BBC, loads of different channels, and so she's very prominent in that cricket world. So automatically that puts you know, a target on your back for you know, people automatically thinking, okay, they've got this program, what's going to happen? You know, are they going to be able to do it? And you know, there's people within cricket who I've worked with, people that I might have classed as friends. I've done some successful programs within the past, colleagues that doubted, oh, how's Chev going to be able to do that? How's Ebony going to do that? How are they going to find the time to do it? And just relating to what I just said previously, it is, we both had a determination and courage to make it work, and work for the right reasons, you know. And we don't always agree, we don't always get along at times, but that healthy check and challenge for the both of us, and being honest with that. Like, there's times where I might have said, Ebbs, I'm not sure that going that route is going to work, and she said, yeah, it will. And then, you know, I've had to put my hands up and say, no, it worked, and vice versa. There's times where she's come to me and said, Chev, maybe that's not the approach we need to do. And I said, no, just trust me. Like, it can do something. I think we've got something here. And then, you know, we have that honest thing when she will say, yeah, Chev, you were right. So there is always going to be resistance. And it's quite funny. And, you know, sometimes people don't like these kind of parts of the deep where the conversation where I'm going to take it to, because when people challenge me is like, oh, why is Ace getting the money? Or what's the program about? What's it trying to do? Oh, I don't think it's right. Or X, Y, and Z. And always used to come back to was, well, I'm trying to run a program for an underrepresented group that has been neglected for cricket as a community for over 30 years. I'm just trying to re-inspire that. Where the areas that I'm going to do it, there was no real science to what we did. We just looked at the census data, and we looked at the highest black populated boroughs in London and outside of London. But what correlated with that was high deprivation, lower socioeconomic. So whether you was white, black, or brown, your access to cricket was limited. And that's going to the class divide that is within cricket. So yes, there is a race divide at times, but the class divide is massive within cricket. As you mentioned there, cricket is perceived as an upper class sport, and it's trying to break those barriers. And by having a targeted talent ID program, that's kind of how we did and went about it with our approach. And even to show you how targeted it was, I'll use a borough like Croydon. I know Croydon as a borough very well in South London, born and raised there. And when we started looking at things, so Croydon as a borough is probably the fourth or fifth highest black populated borough across London. Was there cricket? You could just say yes, tick, but it's like breaking down where there's cricket. So South Croydon, lots of green space, lots of cricket clubs, lots of private schools, generalizing predominantly white middle class and above as a demographic, loads of cricket going on. North of the borough, less green space, less cricket clubs, demographics now. We're talking African Caribbean, South Asian, white working class, Eastern European, just a mix of, everyone. And there was hardly no cricket provision there. So that's how we kind of try to break those barriers. And, for us, we're trying to build a program. So we have to go where people are. So we have to go to the young people. We have to target specific schools and look to engage that way. One of the things that I'm quite proud of to say is, we do that nationally. How we break down there as you go into, that's kind of the model that we kind of look to go, that minuscule targeted approach. And that's enabled us to 78% of the schools that we've gone into since delivering in April 2021 have never had cricket before, which blew my mind. When we did a bit of independent research, 78% of the schools that we've gone into nationally have never had cricket before. And that just shows you where that big class divide is. So yes, there's some fantastic work being done by other cricketing charities, other cricketing boards, but at times it's the easy way to go to just, continue to do, if you use Croydon example, just continue to be south of the borough because there's easy access there. But what about all those kids north of the borough? And you started seeing that across the way and nationally in all the different areas we've gone into. So that's kind of what we do in terms of how we break it down, and we put like a community hub element to it. In those like located areas, we work with schools predominantly where they might be in a cluster or part of an academy. There's different academies across London. There's Harris's, there's a windmill clusters. They're all like got pockets of schools all under one banner, and then we service. Most kids love competition, so how do we bring out that talent side of things is through competition. Some of the other things that we've done is just thinking differently. How else can we encourage kids? We've got a golden ticket, took from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, a golden ticket. Our coaches are in schools, see a kid with talent, they give him this golden ticket to come to the community up session or to an academy session, and then other kids say, oh, how do I get a golden ticket? Because when the kids come to our community hubs, to make them feel part of it, we give them an Ace t-shirt, we give them a wristband, we make them feel part of a group. So we're just creating a different kind of culture and environment to what we want to get from our program. And yeah, we put our program in high black populated communities because that's our target. But we also know the Asian kids, the white kids, other kids from different ethnicities also come to our sessions and benefit at the same time. People ask me, oh, you're only working with, black kids. And I try to say to them, we're talking about African Caribbean heritage. Africa's a big continent. The Caribbean's a big continent. On that continent, there's so many different languages that are spoken, faiths that are followed, skin tones that are there, so it's not just about what people look like, because when you're from a particular area, the relatability, the lived experiences make such a big difference. That cultural side of things is huge, So, there's white kids and black kids that can relate better than each other than from certain class backgrounds than a white and white child and a black and black child in certain class environments. So it's key to get those cultural elements and be aware of it, and just making sure that everyone is a part of it and everyone's getting opportunity, because often a lot of those young people in those areas, they get told, or you get told, it gets perpetuated as a message as those kids don't like cricket. how can you like something if you never had an opportunity to play? So we're giving them an opportunity to like it or don't like it, and some will like it, and others will still say cricket's boring.
Listen, let me chuck a bouncer at you right now.
Oh,
So,
gosh. I haven't got my helmet
on. Okay, so football. Jimmy and I are, I would say, well, I'd say probably football and cricket equal with me, but certainly Jimmy and I are massive football fans as well. I don't know. Are you Chevy actually?
Massive football.
Okay, there you go. So we're all massive football fans.
Still play. That's my release. I work in cricket too many days of the week, and football allows me to play and maybe kick the odd person and get away with it.
So, needless to say, and I'm gonna stereotype here. I'm going to generalize here, but I'm intrigued to see how you respond to it. Is it easier to shape a champion or take someone to the top of a sport in football? I'm just using football, than it would be in cricket. So let's say now you talent ID someone who just has the raw skill set, but then we have to come into the socio-economic aspects of cricket: the bat, the equipment, the travel, your nearest cricket club might not be round the corner, for example. Just coming up through the game. And I'll give you a little anecdote. I'll always remember the first time I played cricket at school. I was at a grammar school, right, in southeast London, some say Kent, and I'll always remember when I played the first game for the school, or maybe it was like a trial game. Every one of those boys brought their own bat to school, their own cup to school, their own pads to school, and I felt ashamed, Chevy, because I was at a grammar school, but that was just because I was clever. I didn't come from a wealthy family, so I bought nothing. I didn't have a bat. I didn't have no pads. When I found out I had to share someone's cup, my world was over.
They made you share?
But I remember thinking, Chevy, this game ain't for me because I can't afford it. Do you see what I mean? So I'm just wondering how the socio-economic comes into it, and is that a barrier, a significant barrier to shaping an elite person or a champion, I should say?
Yeah, a very, very loaded question. Hopefully, I'll be able to give it some response. But yeah, you're right. The economic value to play cricket is expensive, especially nowadays as well. Some of the bats are going for £600. For some people, that's rent. So you're asking a family, can you pay £600 for just a cricket bat? And if you've got 2 children, that's £1,200. And that's just the bat. Let alone the pads and the gloves, and So for us, like in terms of like the best way I can answer that from how we try to prevent those kind of barriers with ACEs, we're fortunate that the funding that we have enables us to provide equipment for players if they need it, provide travel expenses. We're just trying to work out if there's any, why can't you play? Because my mum can't take me, my dad can't take me, or can't get the bus. So I'm not going to play. What about if we paid for an Uber? Okay, I can play. All right, well, let's do that. Whatever barriers are, let's reduce it where we can. I can't get to here. Okay, well, that this player lives 5 minutes away from you and you got a close relationship. They're more than happy to bring you to the game and bring you home. And both parents are happy. Okay, cool. We can go down that route. Equipment. What do you need? I need new gloves or pads. And but I think it's just having the openness within cricket. And sometimes cricket doesn't have that as a program, but we've been quite fortunate to create that as a program to know our parents can come to us, because sometimes there's a pride element, and there has been times where sometimes parents might have come to me or some of the other coaches after the fact, but we've known for the next time, okay, how do we stop that? Football boots, are cheaper than the equipment that you would have to do in cricket. But some of these boots are crazy. So even then, they'll be managing expectations of, you're playing at this level, young boy, girl, you're playing at this level. You don't need those £200 boots that you see them wearing in the Premiership. Let's go for this one. But to say, is it easier? Football gets a lot of stick, and I love football. So football gets a lot of stick to say, they're just kicking a ball around and they're running. But how many people could go out there and put a pinpoint 60-yard pass just like that? The amount of players that football is cutthroat. The amount of people that love and play football, the percentage to become a professional in football, like to become professional in any sport is very hard. But in football, just the sheer amount of players that are trying to get in and that academies take on, and the level that you have to be, you have to give credit where it's due. There's times where people watch the matches on. Michelle, I know you're a big fan of Bromley, and Bromley plays at a certain step level, but even then, to do some of the things that some of those players can do, because the next level is to go into like League Two and stuff like that, into the conference and those kind of positions, you still have to be playing at a high level. And it's easy to be armchair fans in football and say, oh, I could do that, or this, that, and the other. So, to play professionally in any sport, you're going to have certain characteristics that are going to ride you to the top. You're going to have a sound technique and whatever that looks like as a base level. You're going to have a few other exceptional things to your game too. So I don't know. I don't know if I can say which is harder, but in terms of the socioeconomic value, cricket is a much more expensive sport, and it can be an intimidating sport. Like, what your story isn't the first time I've heard that, a young kid going to particularly a cricket club without any equipment, turning up, being told to go down there because someone saw them at a school or somewhere else, and you've got a bit of talent, and that same experience of maybe not even having the white clothes that that everyone wears, and the equipment, and kids aren't easy in some places. Kids will take the mick out of, oh, you've got that bat, oh, you've got what boots are those, or what kit is this, and some kids can be a bit unruly in that aspect to make it uncomfortable, and they know they're doing it. So you have to have a lot of resilience if you're coming from a particular background, if you don't necessarily have that family support, because a lot of the time to get into cricket, your family's got you into it. I didn't have a choice. My dad played, my uncle played, my cousins played, my brother played, granddad played. I come from a cricket family. I didn't have a choice not to follow cricket, and I just ended up enjoying and liking it. But I went to a state school all my life. Our secondary school only ended up playing cricket because there was 3 of us that played at a club outside, but we didn't learn cricket in school. That wasn't given to us. Like we're say at a grammar school or private school, where cricket is there all the time, you're around it. So even if you didn't have that family experience, you could get to be around it and fall in love with it. Whereas, if you go to a state school, and I go back to the point I was making of where your school may be, in that particular parts of the boroughs in particular areas where there is a lower socioeconomic high deprivation, where cricket hasn't even gone to your school, your likelihood to go and make it out of that to play is unheard of. So, it has to be more accessible in terms of the visibility of it. How can the other side of things, a lot of kids they gravitate to YouTube, and, they want things quick. How can cricket be played on a quicker platform for people to just access it, and young people to just see it and be like, actually, this looks all right, and it gets a bit of stick. And I'm not going slightly off tangent, but I know it gets a little bit of stick. But the 100 for me is not for everyone, but for me, for someone's trying to promote and develop and infuse people to like enjoy cricket, it's massive. I've worked in cricket now 10 years, and the last couple of years, people have known me to be, cricket is Chef's thing kind of stuff. Never ever asked me to go to a game, or never asked me how do I get into cricket. And only since the 100, because they started seeing it on BBC and started seeing it just being around on social media a bit more, promoted a bit more. Oh, what's this 100 stuff? Oh, there was a music artist there, or there's the fireworks, and it's just a bit different. And people now inquiring it. So for me, it's not, I know the 100's not for everyone, but for me, it's been massive, because people that have known me for a long period of time, no one that worked in cricket, have no interest to come to a game or want to know how they could get their children to it. I started asking those questions.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man. Just following off the back of that, because you mentioned football, Chevy. So I used to play quite a bit of cricket myself back in the day, and most people are like they're a bowler or a batter.
Yeah.
I was neither. I was an average fielder at best, but I tried. I was giving it the Shane Warne, the Gingang Googly, and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But I could never get it right. But I did love cricket, and my interest in it kind of waned a little bit over the years, but sort of and grew more into football. But sort of what I wanted to touch on was that back in my school days, we played a lot of sport. You know what I mean? We were encouraged to play a lot of sport. And it got me thinking, as we mentioned the football reference, about the Neville brothers and their sister, who played a lot of cricket when they were coming up. And it just sort of intrigued me to get your take on whether, would you encourage young people to take up a variety of sports, including cricket, regardless of which sport they're particularly interested in?
100%. 100%. That play as much sport as you can. Yes, there gets to a point if you get to a certain level where you might have to specialize, but you can learn from loads of different sports. You can learn the different teamwork, different strategies. There might be ways that you can implement certain things you learn in one sport into another. You often quite see, I could reference Owen Morgan, who, played, there's England captain, won the World Cup. He played a lot of curling in Ireland, and he was able to use those skills he learned with his wrist play to do some unorthodox shots in cricket. So there's many different learnings you can take. One of the greatest players, of all time was A.B. de Villiers. He played loads of different sports: hockey, tennis, cricket, all to like a high level. And there's certain things that you can take from them. And if you're playing like, say, let's say a sport like tennis, boxing, snooker, all stuff where you're now playing it just a one-person sport, but then if you play other team sports, then there's a lot of the mindset that you can take the learnings from there, because now if you're playing a single-minded sport, you've got to think a certain way. But now if you're back in a team, how do you go into that team environment? How does that work? And there's so many different learnings you can get from playing sports. So 100% encourage, especially when you're young. When you get older, they should listen to us older people, because we can't play as many sports as we once wanted to do. Our knees can't hack it as much. So it's crucial for people to play as much sport as they can while they're young. And who knows what they might fall in love with? Who knows where they might path? They might have had their heart set on becoming a footballer. A young girl might have had her heart set on being a footballer, but actually someone saw her, and then there's a talent transition into becoming a netball player, and it was able to succeed even more. Do you know what I mean? So play as many sports as you can and learn from them, especially before you have to specialize in and dedicate your time to a little bit more in one or the other. But yeah, as long as people can, I'll definitely encourage them to play as many sports as possible, because the base position, it's the same, hands and shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent. You can't do that in every kind of sport. So your agility and all those kind of things, your core strength, you need all of that in a lot of sports. So it helps. It helps.
Yeah, love that, man. And just coming back to cricket in my day, and I was watching sort of the Brian Laras of the world. That was, he would have been my cricketing hero. Played for Warwickshire, my home county club, but also there were several players of Black or Caribbean origin playing for England: Gladstone Small, Devon Malcolm, Chris Lewis, De Freitas, all at that same time. There were a lot of, and now I think I struggle to, like, Jofra Archer, Chris Jordan, the two, probably the only two I could think. I'm sure you guys could think of many more. But I guess what I'm getting at is, do you feel like there are enough inspirational characters within the game to inspire young people of Black heritage to come into cricket? And also, have you been able to account for why there was such a dramatic decrease in numbers playing the sport?
Yeah, I pay, as you can see just over my shoulder, there's Big Devon there in the picture, so I pay homage to him, as like some of the other many greats you mentioned. Role models is big, and we often say that at the charity, you can't be what you can't see. And part of the reason, I guess, for Ebony kind of kicking off Ace was because of when Jofra made but when he burst onto the scene, she was like looking around and thinking, actually, like, where is the other players? Like, just like you there. Oh, she was like, well, there's Joff doing his thing. He's come from via Barbados. DJ, he's come from Barbados. And then actually there's like a few, there's many others, we're quite thankful to, I think a lot of the Black players at the moment playing in this country are ambassadors of ours. So there are a few others, but in terms of at the time of her thinking was like, well, where's the next, where's the pipeline of players coming through? And the West Indies were, it's because this was back in 2019 when some of those talks were happening. West Indies were coming over here in 2020. So it was a case of like, is there something we can do to try and reignite it? And Ace was kind of the thing that was thought of, and then it's just grown massively since then. But you're right. We often say as well, we're trying to re-inspire a generation. I talked about earlier in the podcast. There's a 75% decline professionally. A lot of those players you mentioned were playing across the 80s and 90s for a sustained period of time. For the counties, for England, high representation, and then there's like nothing. There's been a big drop off, and there's been a few different maybe reasons why, and you look institutionally, you look systematically. I look within the community itself. There's so many different multi-facets that I think it could be put down to, but some of the things I look at is the structures within cricket in terms of how clubs are organized. So, at a point there was a lot of predominantly Caribbean clubs, more than African clubs around. Now a lot of those clubs didn't have their own ground. So if you don't have your own ground, you become like a wandering club. So you always, either playing away games or you're hiring facilities. And obviously that all comes at a cost. And then what I say you look at it systematically and the structure of things is, the ECB, will put measures in for clubs that you need to get certain specific points of funding. You need to have a clubhouse, you need to do club mark, you need to be doing certain things. Now, if you don't have a ground, your own ground, you don't have a pavilion, you're not in control of certain outside things, then you can't get the funding. So, there's like structures in place. Like for club mark, you have to have juniors. So even if you was a cricket club, you didn't have a junior section, you might not even be able to get certain bits of funding. And then what clubs are doing? So cricket was servicing cricket very well. So the clubs that already had money coming in, whether it's through their bar, whether it's through other external hirers, they're already established and sustained. And then they could get even more sustained by getting the funding. And the clubs that, like predominantly a lot of the Caribbean clubs and teams, because they didn't have their own home, you can't make things sustainable. You can't grow a junior section if you don't have anywhere to play. So those wandering clubs just wandered off, most of them. So, there's the structure of that. And, you look at that, did those clubs kind of stop wander off because, predominantly there was one or two people keeping it going for whatever, but there's times where I look at some people still involved in cricket from the Caribbean community, and they'll often criticize county boards and they'll criticize the ECB, and I'll say, well, you've got children similar age to me, how comes they've never played cricket? So there's times where I look within our own community, because often there was a time where it was the men are just going off to play cricket for the day, food, drinks, have a great day, and they're gone on a Saturday, come back late, or maybe not even come back, and then play Sunday, and then they're back again, weekend's done. And they wouldn't necessarily encourage their families to go with them or the kids to go with them. So, there is that element to it, which I think some people neglect to try and bring up or don't want to bring up, because the same people criticizing the establishment for putting these structures also played a part by not even encouraging their own families or relatives or kids to play. So, it's easy just to blame on one side, but there's definitely blame on both.
Chevy, I'm sure you've picked up that Jimmy, from his accent, is from Brumtown. I
didn't necessarily say it was Brum, but I knew it was up north. I've been spending a bit of time in Brum. We've got a program in Birmingham as well.
You must have known what I was about to say to you. See, you knew what was coming next. So obviously, it's one thing to start the program in London, and I'm just intrigued. Not many people know, but when my family came over here from Jamaica, we first lived in Birmingham. Jimmy, by the way, is a Birmingham fan, but we lived in Selly Oak near Aston Villa.
Okay.
So up until the age of 8, between the age of 3 and 8, I lived in Birmingham, and I'm just intrigued because Birmingham has such a, and Jimmy can speak on it more because he lives there, but Birmingham has such a strong Caribbean heritage and people of Caribbean heritage in Birmingham. And I often say it's funny to me because I think people of Caribbean heritage in Birmingham are actually different. There's a very significant difference in how they carry themselves compared to people in London of Caribbean heritage. And unless you know the two, you may not pick up the nuances of the difference between the two communities. But I'm just intrigued to know, was Birmingham, or is Birmingham similar to the kind of, whether it be barriers or development programs you've faced as in London? And I guess extrapolating that further, because obviously you've got programs in Bristol and you've gone out further, is it harder to, within the field of cricket, to shape a champion or an elite sports person the further away you are from the center of the country? Are there certain barriers that come in because of that?
Yeah, I think geographically, every area has its slight differences and nuances and challenges within it. There's always going to be, those. So what I would say to a lot of I don't know Birmingham. I don't know Bristol like I know London. So I'm going off a lot of the local knowledge that my team up those areas have. And it's a case hearing them, listening to it. Okay, all right, why don't we try it this way? If you've done it all this way, this might work like this, or, and taking some of the learnings there just by listening to see what is on the ground. Like, I talk about London. I know South London at the back of my hand, but I don't necessarily know North London, and the differences between those are huge. So yeah, geographically, when you're talking about setting up programs in Birmingham, Bristol, Manchester, Sheffield, and Nottingham that we have now, we have the core model of what we feel can work. But we're also aware of some of those things that work well in some of these areas is not going to work at all. Just because of culturally how things are done differently. But yeah, like the Birmingham program, I love going up to the Birmingham program. The Birmingham program mostly runs out of Handsworth, and like Handsworth Park, Handsworth Cricket Club. It's got like one of my, if I can leave a legacy for Handsworth Cricket Club, will be to try and get them a new pavilion, because they've got this old school shell of a pavilion, but the community embrace it, and it's massive. Like those Friday night sessions that happen there throughout the summer at the cricket club, the sense of community and belonging that it brings. We're lucky that we can able to bring people together just from the playing side, the talent ID side, but also from the family side, like the network. There's one of the families, they moved up from London to Birmingham, didn't really know anyone, and with the cricket element, they found a new community of people that they can now call upon in their local area. They didn't know necessarily was there. We can provide hot meals for some of them, because cost of living crisis for some, it was hard to provide for family, but they know on the Friday down at the cricket club that everyone's getting a hot meal. So even the parents are getting a hot meal, and the kids are getting a hot meal, and their siblings are getting a hot meal. So it takes away those kind of things. That happens often a lot in the Birmingham program. It doesn't necessarily happen in the London program, or that is a unique point of the Birmingham. That sense of family and community element is so strong there. How they're all in it together, and and partly maybe that is because of how it started. So in London, we just started with an academy. We just selected 24 kids. We had a talent at the open day. 24 kids came, 100 kids came. We selected 24, and then was like, okay, this is what we're going to start off with. We couldn't do that in Birmingham because there wasn't necessarily 100 kids coming to trial at a high level to play cricket from the African Caribbean community. So how that program started was more from the grassroots up, from schools program, those kids getting those golden tickets coming to the community program, and those kids graduating into the academy. A lot of those kids, you could map their journey in Birmingham that they were located in a school that we went in, and now they went to community hub, and now they're in the academy. So that sense of belonging and how they are with the coaches and how the parents are with the coaches is huge. So yeah, each area is different and unique to itself. And I'm not just saying this because Jimmy's on the call and you grew up there, but no, the Birmingham program is special. And I think how far that came, that was the second area we went to, and we just knew that there's a high population of the African Caribbean community in Birmingham, and there's second largest city. So we had to be there and had to be in it. But it's like we're not across the whole city. Specifically, a lot of it is around the Handsworth and Aston area.
I'm sure Jimmy may want to come in on that. He'll give me a nod in a second, but just before Jimmy does come in, one last one for me actually. And again, I think this is applicable across sports, but with your cricket hat on, head on. Let's say hypothetics. You get somebody now, so they come for your ACE program and they go into the English county system off the back of the work they've done through the ACE program, right? So let's say, therefore, you've shaped a champion in that sense. Like they've gone further than they possibly would have done without the ACE program being there, because it's put in a scaffold that they may previously never have existed for them. And this is what I've written down. What are the, because then you've lost them at that point, right? What are the key things that you feel that young person then needs to see in place for them to carry on and be successful, whatever that success looks like, but just let's say generically successful on their journey? Now, is that on the county and the next system that picks them up, or is that on the young person? And if you say it's on the county, what are the structures, support, care, scaffold that must come around that young person to make sure that they don't waste the work that you do? You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the so we always get in at times a muddle of our thoughts as a program and as a charity, because there's times where we might often criticize the county pathway system and what that opportunities it provides for young people, where players might go within cricket. But at the same time, we need that for the players to elevate as well. So how we support a young person's journey is massive, because we know there's certain flaws within that system, particularly for some of the young people from our programs, that we need to help with. So we often thought at the beginning, the very outset of ACE, we thought once we get kids into the county, we're never going to see them again. They're gone. But all the kids, because of the environment that we've been able to create, and this is not just from a London point of view, this is a national thing. We often talk about ACE vibes, ACE family, like that feeling that we have runs through the program. The kids, even if they play for county, they still come back and play with us. They still train with us. They still wear the kit. There's still a sense of pride of wanting to be part of it. So when these young people are in the program, we have to support them in terms of how we can keep mentoring them. Some of the parents, from the program might not know cricket or the details of cricket. So sometimes, coaches can say silly things like, "Oh, your alignment is this and that and the other." No, just like you're just not. And not everything is straight, just that, because some people need to understand the simple in terms of, let's not get too technical with the cricket stuff. And the parents don't necessarily know that, and some of the coaches know that. So for us, it's important that we're, I've sat in with some of our players when they're doing player review meetings with the counties, just so I can help. This is what they mean by they're saying this, or this is what you need to work on. This is what that means, because I've been in and around the performance environments from a county, from a national level. So, we need to support everyone on that journey who gets there, because they're going to be, I guess, at times left to their own devices. They're going to be lonely. So a lot of the things that a lot of these young people would say, whether it was county, whether it was their club, they're like the only one, So, there's how they manage that, being the only black kid or only mixed race kid in that session, how that makes them feel. Whereas when they're at ACE, they're one of many, and they can really, and we encourage it. You can really, we're creating an environment where you can truly be yourselves, and express yourself without being judged. Whereas in a county environment, it's a bit different. There's an added pressure sometimes that the young player will feel, that their parents will feel. But for us, it's like, we know if any high performing person, they perform the best when they're relaxed, they're not stressed, they don't put their added self pressure on. So how do we help support that? And that is by keeping regular communication, whether it is with the players and the parents, whether it is with the coaches. Cricket's a small world, like football would be a small world. Someone might say they know so and so, or this coach, between 3 or 4 people that someone knows that person and can pick up the phone to them. So it's just having those honest conversations, and whether that is an honest conversation of the players performing well or not performing well. So if they're not performing well, tell them why. And I think sport is guilty and is failing many champions, but this is a key part of shaping champions, is having that honest, you're at this level, to get to the next level where we think you are is X, Y, and Z. And that's not often said. It's kind of just left. lurch. Even if you get dropped, you're not really told why. Or if, using say a football analogy, you're starting and now you're on the bench, and if that's not to do with injury, sometimes those conversations don't happen. And it's similar to cricket. I was, you're opening bowler. How comes I'm not opening bowler anymore? I was batting at 3, now I'm batting low, and a lot of the time those conversations aren't happening. And if I wish they were, and we're talking about, we're in a space where we have to look after the player and the aftercare of that player, because we're getting players that at times have been in a pathway and dropped out of pathway. So now we've got to manage that. There was on a pathway for 3-4 years, maybe even longer, and then they get a generic email with a letter attached to it that everyone else gets saying, no longer in the program, we'll keep looking at you, and that's it. And that's where we have to help build some of that self-confidence back up and get them believing in themselves again, because a lot of these kids are talented and there's talent everywhere. So it's just around having that holistic approach to the person, and understand that every player is different. How every player learns is different. How they like to want feedback is different. Those cliches of some players want the arm around the shoulder. Some players prefer being shouted at. Those just using two cliche examples. But it's right. Every player responds differently, and it's important that coaches, administrators involved see that. Yes, this is our style of play. This is what we want to do. But actually, Jimmy's going to learn that, take on what I've said differently, to Mash is taking it on differently. So, I take it on differently. Everyone learns in a different way and interprets it in a different way, and allowing people to have the confidence to maybe ask a question, and giving them that space to do that, or giving them that space. You know what? Jimmy likes to reflect. So actually, when I'm giving him this information, he might come to me at the end of the session and say, "Oh, Chef, what did you mean by that?" And we can have that. As oftentimes you might get an approach of, Jimmy, don't worry about it, mate. I'll speak to you next week. Got to run off another session or what have you. So, at times people forget the human side of sport and coaching to shape, because you're shaping champions on a playing perspective, but you're shaping champions in the life perspective. And that's what sometimes gets neglected, because you're building young people to become successful in all parts of life. And sport is a tool to do that. But, I often look back at some of my own lived experiences. Some of my people I've aspired to were PE teachers, coaches that I've known, that there's stuff I can go back in time to think of. I remember when so-and-so did that session, and, it still stays with you, because that's the impact it had. And sometimes I think we forget the impact that we have as teachers, facilitators, coaches, that we're having on a young person's journey, because kids are very impressionable. They're learning, they're taking it all in, and they will know if your session is bad or good, or if you're there or not there for them. So the holistic side of things, shaping champions on and off the pitch is crucial.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Chevy, because as you alluded to, sport is such a powerful tool when it comes to shaping character, not just shaping champions, and we should never underestimate just how powerful it can be. But really amazing to hear that you're creating that kind of environment within the program as well, because if I just kind of parallel it with football, because we've mentioned that sport a couple of times, young players are thrust into an academy environment if they get offered a trial or whatever it might be, and that is a pressure cooker, and that can crush people. Do you know what I mean? And it can have really long-lasting detrimental impacts on them. So, really amazing to hear that they're able to go on that journey with you guys. But just to round off, you mentioned kind of working in Brum, the Mecca, and Handsworth in particular.
The boring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know myself firsthand that Handsworth is an area that's densely populated with global majority ethnicities. So I'm really interested to know, what have you found in terms of the talent pool in those kind of areas, in the cities that you're working in, and are you encouraged by it?
Very much so encouraged by the talent. And like I said, the Handsworth, like the session that runs out of there, like I said, it's got such a different feel to it in terms of some of the other areas, because of a lot of those players who started their journey together, from the community hub and now in the academy and their families. It's got a real sense of that community feel. And all we're seeing in our community hubs in particular, and solely in our academy now, is how we'll be able to support all underrepresented groups, but reflective of that local community. So, within that, if I use to take it back to say London, our community obsession that we do out of the Oval, you've got Black, white, Portuguese, South American. So it's reflective of the local community, and that's what we're trying to replicate. Because I've often joked and said, if I can get one of these Portuguese kids that lives in Stockwell to love Jason Roy more than Cristiano Ronaldo, then I'm on to a winner. I'm waiting to have one of the first Portuguese kids that are going to make it in cricket. I'm still determined to have that aspiration. From the local estate, just by the Oval, the young Portuguese kids. So, those things are massive, and like that East Birmingham is a special place. And just over my shoulder, if I move like the camera a bit, you can see like Davina Perrin, like she's a super talented young lady, like unbelievably talented. Originally from Wolverhampton, but that shirt over my shoulder is her Birmingham Phoenix shirt in the 100. That was when she first signed, just after her 16th birthday. She's been part of the 100 Birmingham Phoenix squad, the last 2 years. Hasn't got on to play for various different reasons. But in terms of, to go back to what other things we said about role model, like she's a massive role model for the young kids that go there, because she came to like Ace Birmingham. Now, there's nothing that Ace is in Birmingham, and Ace as a charity has done for her in terms of a playing perspective. She's already highly talented when she came to us. She's already playing now. She's now playing for like England under 19s and stuff. But what we can say Ace has supported her with and her family is that holistic side that we were just talking about. The mentoring side, she can call upon me, she can call upon Ebony, she can call upon Ebony's lived experiences of her journey through cricket, playing for England and stuff like that. So that sense of community and feel is huge, and using her as a role model is massive. And when like earlier in the summer, she used to go to those same Friday sessions at Handsworth. And she came back near the start of end of July, early August, came back in her Birmingham Phoenix kit, and all the kids and all the parents are like, oh, it's Davina. Like, so, a couple of years ago, they were just running around playing with her, and now they've seen her on a platform, representing Birmingham Phoenix, but they can relate to her, and it's the more things we can do like that, where you can bring your role models closer to the young people, the better. And I know it's easier said than done, but, the more we can encourage doing that is massive. So yeah, and I big up Birmingham. I always get looked after when I go up to Birmingham. Always get looked after.
Hey, big up, bro.
No, 100%. But I mean, and the energy up, I guess the energy outside of anywhere out of London is different as well. It's a lot more friendly, as a London, when you go out of the ends and out of different parts, you're often shocked when someone says hello or smiles at you. It's not really the norm. But no, Birmingham, very, very, very good experiences in Birmingham.
It's good to hear, man. Absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure Mash is going to concur on this one, but this has been such an uplifting conversation for me. It's really given me a boost, man. It's just fantastic to speak to someone who is so passionate about their work and is doing really good work that's embedded in the community and is spearheading what is an incredible project and program. And yeah, man, just so grateful that you came on, Chevy, and thanks so much for your time, man. It's been brilliant.
No, thank you. And all I want to get across to people is that, I've said it publicly before, I would have been an ace kid, state school kid, had a bit of talent for cricket, played on the county pathway. Did I get some of the equals opportunities that I thought? Yes, no. Was I good enough? Probably not, but a program like this would have helped me. So for me, I'm just trying to help young people that grew up in areas that I grew up in, the same experiences, me and my white mates, Asian mates, black mates, all playing cricket together in communities that maybe wasn't for us to be playing. And I just want to give back and give opportunities for, and who knows where someone could go. And so if Ace touches any young person and their journey goes on to be anything, it might not even be within cricket, but they can say, what, I remember when I went to an Ace session and it inspired me to do whatever, X, Y, and Z. And hopefully my passion goes across to my team's passion, and it goes across to the young people. And then hopefully we'll see some, opportunities created for many young people. Cricket has cricket's in an interesting space with the ICC report and everything that came out, and hopefully we can be a part of that change for the better. And we're on a good path. There's more things we can do better and improve on. So once we do that, we'll take over the world. I say take over the world, but I'm looking to take over West Indies one day. I'll be honest. I need to help. I need to help the West Indies. I need to help them. We need to get a program. We need to get Ace West Indies. Someone give me some money over there.
Listen, we'll have that conversation for sure. But listen, Chevy, like Jimmy said right at the start something which I thought actually summed up the episode even before we'd even properly recorded it, which is that you can totally see why you were picked as the person for the job. Like I know we've spoken before, but like your energy comes through so clearly, and your passion. And I think, and I don't just say this for saying this sake, if a lot of sports institutions or institutions in general that work around young people and have a level of responsibility for taking them on a journey to make them successful in whatever medium or form, if they had your energy and they had your passion, I think we'd have a lot more success stories in general. So yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on. It means a lot
from both of you, man. It means a lot from both of you. And thanks again, just for creating awareness for myself, but also creating awareness for Ace. The more people can hear about it, the more interactions we can get. And if anyone's listening and they want to get engaged with our program, there's more opportunities to do it. And we're national now, so it's not just, can't just say it's only London, and we've got Big Brum in the place too.
Well, that's been another episode of Shaping Champions with myself, Jimmy Davis, my brother Michelle St. Patrick Hewitt, and many thanks to our guest this episode, Chevy Green. You can find out all the details you need to below in the description. Anything you want to find out about the ACE program, or if you want to get in contact with Chevy, we'll put all the details down there. All of the links to follow us on whatever platform you're listening to us on or watching us on. Please do subscribe to us, comment, like, share, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time.